Atheist Nomads, episode 268. Mostly good news.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to the episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin. Joining me is Lauren.
Hello!
And we have Mikey.
Hi, everybody.
So I have figured out why the news lately has been so shitty. And it's not just the fact that the world is horrible.
I was going to say it's a shitty world, but...
That's a big part of it. I've been getting most of it from Reddit.
Womp womp.
And if not Reddit, then Twitter.
That's another sound for the soundboard, by the way. Womp womp. Sad trombone.
No.
Okay, yeah, don't go with Reddit and Twitter, because, wow.
Yeah.
That's like trying to get movie critique from YouTube. Not going to work. It's going to be skewed. It's going to be trolly.
Yeah.
And not the good gummy kind of trolly.
4chan would probably be worse, but...
Oh, yeah. Hilariously so.
Oh, man. Yeah, so I've been going back to using Feedly with a bunch of
Good old
RSS
Feedly.
feeds and finding a better balance of news. So that's quite nice.
Cool.
I'm just always in free fall. I just snag some news out of the wind and read it. Move on. Very disjointed way of doing things.
Now,
sounds very zen, though.
Yeah, very-
like, just let it flow through you.
so is the free fall way you just find whatever people post on social media?
Or I look for it, or I hang
Okay.
out. It's not... I don't really have a game plan. I just absorb things, and then ignore when I want to, and then... But
it does sound very zen.
Yeah, and then people always mention things, and you can go track it down. But,
People probably tag you in far more than you ever thought possible.
after a while, yeah, that does happen, but not so much as you think. Like, everyone has a few trigger things that people think of when they think of you, and then when those things become popular, everybody posts that thing to your wall. It happens to me, too. It's the same.
Happens to everybody. I remember when I went through a period of liking frogs when I was younger, and for like Christmas and birthdays for the next 5 years, I got frog stuff.
Yeah, but frogs are cute.
And I found my box of old plastic frogs, so now I'm really excited.
So many frogs.
So many poison dart frogs. How was your week, Dustin?
Oh, we did Salt Lake City Comic-Con.
That was awesome.
Yeah, we got to meet Brent Spiner, and by meet, get a picture taken with him.
Yeah.
He said...
Something along the lines of, how are you today? Or
how's your day? Or
something along those, yeah.
It was quick. It was...
Quick and easy.
quick, painful, and
Quick, not pain.
no, it was painless.
Okay.
Yeah, the line was pretty rough.
Yeah.
How long was it?
They had to extend
100
us
people
into a second
That's crazy.
line. So, out of all the other photo ops that were going on at that time,
Yeah.
none of whom I had ever heard of any of these people.
Oh, okay. Well,
They had mostly 20 to 50 people.
You don't know who Vic Mignogna is?
Yeah, I have no
Brent
idea.
Spiner had probably 50 VIPs and 200 not VIPs.
Wow.
I think it was 100.
Yeah, it could have been.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of
either way.
people.
There's a lot of
But
people.
we saw some really cool Borg
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
line, so it was really cool.
Getting good at the Borg cosplay.
Yeah, oh, it was amazing. It was good. It was very good.
And Kylie was in her captain's onesie.
Yeah.
So cute. Yeah.
There she is. Yeah, that sounds like fun. I made Nichelle Nichols cry once.
What?
Yeah, Nichelle Nichols. Uhura.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went up to get a picture autographed, and I brought up James Doohan's story referencing an earlier story where I had met them when I was a teenager and how nice he was to me and my siblings. And the mention of him made her cry, and she kicked me out. She told me to go away.
Who was this? Who's
Uhura.
Well, no, I know
Nichelle
her.
Nichols. Yeah.
Nichelle Nichols is I know her. Who was it that you mentioned that?
Oh, James Doohan, Scotty.
Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty deep into the Nerd Force TOS stuff.
Had he just died at that point?
I mean, DeForest Kelly died first,
Right.
because he was also considerably older than everyone else. And James Doohan was the second oldest, but he lived to be a decent age.
Oh
too.
yeah, he did.
Yeah, because I think I remember when he died. Which so
Yeah, didn't they? They tried to launch him into space, and then didn't the rocket crash or some crazy shit like that? Yeah, I don't know. That may or may not be true. It could be a dream I had.
that's a pretty epic dream.
Can't
but...
tell. Yeah, but I was wearing a Frankenberry mask because I was doing really lazy. My best friend went as Tank Girl, and we were being stopped by everybody because a good Tank Girl costume gets a lot of attention from other cosplayers. Because Tank Girl, she had taken the giant oatmeal cans that turned them into the missile bra.
Yeah,
the Tank Girl was known for. So we were getting stopped by all these girls, and I was just wearing a Frankenberry mask with like a handle.
And fancy. You didn't just cut it out of the cardboard cereal box?
No, I think that's what I did.
Okay.
And then I saw that Nichelle Nichols was off by herself. Like, she had just come back. Like, John Rhys-Davies hasn't come back, but she had. So I was able to get there without there being a line or anything like that.
Nice.
Yeah. So I had some time to talk, which I used to make an idiot of myself. And then she started crying, and then she's like, "You're making me cry. You need to go." And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." And then she goes, "Wait, give me your mask." So she took my mask from me and then made me leave. But I do.
That is awesome.
But I do have the still photo of her holding the knife from the Amir episode. Is a really fierce photo of hers I've always loved, and I actually have that signed from her from that time. That was a few years ago. But but like you said, when we were off recording, if you had done it again, you would actually do the autograph as opposed to the photo op, because you actually get to say hello, and that was my experience. I actually got to say hi while she signed the thing, whereas with these photo ops, they just don't have time. Like, they're just go, like jump out the airplane kind of thing.
He was late. He was late getting to it, and then huge crowd, so
I can't imagine you
had to ram everybody through, and then we, of course, had a baby with us, so they had to try to get the baby looking the right direction.
That's gross.
The photographer
it was great.
did a really
the lady
good
was
job.
jumping up and down, going, "Hey, look at me! Hey, look at me!" So the picture is actually me laughing my ass off.
That's fine.
Because the lady was doing such a good job. Hey.
She doesn't like that story. Makes her seem like a giant baby.
So how was 2-8 Comedy Fest?
It was nice. Really busy. A lot of really fun people. Comedy festivals are kind of great and horrible at the same time. And they're horrible in that they're predicated on every comic that comes out spending hundreds of dollars to fly to a city to do comedy. And the festival raises all of its money to pay the big headliners. So like the top 1 to 2 people or 3 people get paid, and everyone else pays to come in. But the experience is always fun because it's like rooms full of comedians, and the audiences really like festivals. And Kyle Kinane was here, and he's just super funny. He was at the Old Egyptian Theater downtown, which is a historical theater in downtown Boise. And it was up against the first BSU home game, which is a pretty big deal around Boise. And they still did really well.
That's because there's a lot of people out there who don't like BSU football.
And a lot of people that like Kyle Kinane. And he is super nice and super funny. And the cool thing is the local comics and producers who put together the show do a really good job of choosing a lot of comics, and there's a lot of diversity. So nice. I actually got to see a lot of queer comics and a lot of disabled comics and a lot of stuff as, just run-of-the-mill everybody else. It was really exciting. People who were like popular BuzzFeed contributors, or people who were like one of the writers of Kimmy Schmidt and stuff like that. So
nice.
Just a fun assortment of really funny people. And producing shows means I basically stand around and take the money and then whatever and watch them. So I got to watch a lot of really good comedy, and they're a lot of fun.
Nice.
So
cool.
Yeah. And also I didn't have to pay for any shows. So, and one of the really cool things that the Boise Festival does, which actually isn't super common, is Lady Business sponsors the Artist Lounge underneath Liquid/Solid. And it's a basement, which was always a little bit warm, but they had beanbag chairs, and there was always a spread, like there was food.
Wow.
So even Stevens brought us in breakfast.
That's another reason to love Lady Business.
Yeah, no, Lady Business is great. Like even Stevens brought us in some breakfast burritos.
They're such
and then
mothers.
it's ideal, I think. It just really shows the strength of a comedy community if it's not just a bunch of 20-something white dudes. Like if you actually have like a bigger spread, you actually find a lot more community, just because it's not a bunch of sad guys. Which, I mean, just a lot of comics in that type of comic. There's just lot of just very broken, sad people. Which, I was once, and now I'm a broken older person.
Yeah,
it's totally fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the festival's great.
Nice. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into some news.
Do it.
So,
do it.
In response to Pennsylvania's big grand jury, where they uncovered thousands of cases of priests raping children, 7 additional states have launched their own investigations.
I mean, sad, but yay.
Well, it's on top of the states who had already done so on their own.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the appropriate response.
Yeah.
It's
but this is the The Pennsylvania one was new in that it was the first time that it had actually been a massive, statewide major investigation. And in that case, they only looked at 6 of the DOCs in Pennsylvania. They didn't look at the entire state. So now we've got New York, New Jersey, Nebraska, New Mexico, Florida, Missouri, and Illinois.
Wow.
That's so many people.
That is. So far...
Except for you, Nebraska. Nobody.
So far, most of these states have... Now, how they've all done it has been different because each state has its own laws set up differently.
Right.
So, some of them, it's the Attorney General is doing it, and others, the courts have set up a special tribunal. And then in some, it's the Attorney General is just coordinating with district attorneys because Attorney Generals don't necessarily have the right to actually investigate things. It all depends on the state as to whether or not that's even allowed. And so this is big. This is huge. And so far, basically every DOC that's been contacted has agreed to cooperate.
Oh, wow.
Maybe that means somebody higher up the food chain is just like, yeah, well, it's going to happen. It's better that you cooperate than they bring in the feds or that they really make it a bigger deal because it's already a really big deal. But also, I wrote a joke 12 years ago about priests having sex with kids, and I re-bring it up every time this happens again. 12 years. And it wasn't even new when I wrote the joke. It had already been a thing. So I have another week coming up at the comedy club, and I'm going to be again because every time, I think this is the 3rd time I've brought it back from retirement because these things come back again, and then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, it depends on the audience. Obviously, not everyone's going to get that one, but it's just ridiculous how long this has been going on, forever.
Now, one thing that's interesting is Idaho is not on the list.
Now, didn't Idaho already do an investigation, or
just into one priest?
Yeah. Oh well, that guy was guilty.
That was just the one priest that they'd found looking into child porn.
Yeah.
But of course, Idaho isn't going to because the governor's Catholic.
Oh right. The current governor.
Yeah. Now his final term ends at the end of the year, but
I know, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, this is cool. And in some case, a couple of these cases actually, it was one of the DOCs in the state that reached out to the Attorney General first and said, as soon as the investigation was announced, they just called up and said, "Hey, we will cooperate."
Well, I mean, it's kind of a given. I know they haven't. Yeah. Previously, they had made other decisions, though, hadn't they? Yeah.
They've actively fought it until now.
Weird. So weird.
Oh, I think the reason they aren't fighting it is they know all of these investigations, they're setting up grand juries or something equivalent.
Right.
A body with subpoena power. If they refuse a subpoena, they can go to jail.
Yeah, which, as it should be. You don't have the right to hide child sex crimes with any amount of protection of religion. That's just not permissible. That's not okay. So, yeah. Didn't that guy come out recently and say that he didn't know that having sex with a child was illegal? Did you catch that? I think that was out today.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a relatively new story. I think it was something along the lines. He didn't know or wasn't sure. I don't understand. I mean, I know some
What is your definition of child?
Yeah, it depends what the definition of... Yeah, no.
What is your definition of sex?
Bill Donahue did go that approach with most of it's not rape because there wasn't any penetration.
Yeah, but that nobody accepts that definition of rape anymore. That's like Brock Turner tried to be like he didn't deserve to be called a sex offender because he didn't have penetrative sex. And that's just gross. It's just gross. That's where you're drawing the line. It's not rape unless you put something inside of them. Who says that as a defense?
Well,
that was the best defense.
That's your best defense is, well, at least I didn't kill her. Oh, okay. Well, there we are.
Now, what's interesting, though, is none of the charges have actually been for rape. It's been child sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Which is a much broader term.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So penetration is not required.
Cast a wide net on that one.
So, yeah, we might actually start seeing some changes, which will be really, really nice.
And you'd think it would be expected. It's surprising that the monolith that is the Catholic Church has taken this long. It's just so fundamentally evil. Like,
well,
I mean,
it's not even the whole Catholic Church. I mean, the Pope just came out and said the best thing to do in this situation is to remain silent and pray.
Yeah.
That's telling people to shut up about it. And that's
they don't want to damage the church.
Pope.
Yeah. Well, and there's also just
wow.
Like, even with this cooperation, they're just saying they will turn over relevant records.
You got to ask for them first, though.
You have to ask for them, and that also assumes that they've been keeping records.
Well, I mean, yeah, but also that's just a pen statement.
It is.
It's just like, yeah, of course. But I mean, also it does show that they won't have to fight as like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you just come on over and we'll give you the stuff, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We'll work with you. Ignore the shredder in the corner.
Yeah.
Well, but okay, so a priest confesses to his bishop,
which they're all doing right now,
that he's been abusing children.
Right.
The bishop responds by transferring the priest,
which they had been doing for a while.
The bishop, I highly doubt,
write down the reason.
He's not. Yeah, you're not going to put down reason for transfer. Fiddled with too many children.
I don't know. I've known a lot of bean counters that might actually do that. I mean, you got to put something in there, right? What are you going to do? Lie?
Reason for transfer. You don't need a reason for transferring pastors or ministers. It's just reason for transfer.
Incompatible personalities.
God called this person to new area, and then you're done.
You are done.
And yeah, they wouldn't have many records.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. But at least they're going to get it done, and they are going to, finally investigate. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. And for our second one, we've got, this one's good and bad.
Okay.
So the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, at least a panel of 3 judges from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, ruled unanimously that the lower court ruling that ordered that Pensacola's Bayview Park cross needs to be removed, they ruled that is valid and that it needs to be removed.
Yay!
Yay! One of the judges even wrote that current judicial precedence is a clusterfuck.
They admitted that the only reason they did it this way is because of precedent. And they actually asked the Supreme Court to fix precedent so that in future cases they could actually rule in favor of keeping the cross.
Yep.
Because they didn't want to. It's just that precedent set up in previous cases had established that this was against the law.
Well, they had to specifically because 29 years ago, there was a almost identical case that the Supreme Court ruled it had to be taken down.
Now, yeah, for Boise, what they did is they sold a plot of land around the cross to a private company. So while the city, I believe, or whoever owns the rest of Table Rock, that's the plot of land. Yeah, that was how we got around in Boise. And there's a cross that overlooks Boise, and they have the same conversation. The mayor of the town or somebody said something about how it's not just a religious thing, it's a part of the town history, which, I mean, you could say about any stop sign or tree, really, if it's old enough.
Yeah, but those stop signs and trees weren't put up because they wanted to declare themselves a Christian city.
Right, which, is something that this country is full of a lot of people that would like to do that.
Yeah.
They do want, they don't understand that freedom of religion isn't freedom to be Christian. They think it's freedom to be whatever you want. They don't realize that. They're always like, oh, but this gets in the way of our freedom to be Christian. And they're like, yeah, but you got to share space.
Now, so in the Table Rock case in Boise, they saw the tides returning in the courts. So they put the 10 square feet of land underneath the cross up for public sale.
Without telling anybody.
And forgot to put up the notices. But they did tell the Knights of Columbus who bought it.
Yeah.
It's not the Knights of Columbus. It's somebody else. Somebody similar.
It's a Catholic group that bought it. And so when a lawsuit was finally brought up in I think it was the 90s, the ruling was basically that, yes, that sale was illegal. But by that point, it had been 20 years.
Yeah.
It's private property now, so there's nothing you can do. It may be 10 square feet that's completely surrounded by federal or city or county land or state land, but it's private property. Pensacola, it is a cross in a public park that is maintained by the city of Pensacola.
Yeah, they spent a bunch of money defending this case too. Right?
Yep.
Like just a ton of money. I don't understand why. But I also know that Christians are still in love with the concept of being persecuted. They love the idea.
They set themselves up for it.
Like Romans threw a bunch of them to the lions like 2,000 years ago, and now they're still milking that. They're still milking that.
Well, the mayor's statement on it is, this cross is more than a religious symbol. It's an important part of the city's history and culture, just like many other monuments celebrated throughout Pensacola's parks. To tear down this symbol just because a few are offended by it shows hostility to religion, not neutrality. The city looks forward to being vindicated on appeal, as the majority of the court said it should be.
Well, I mean, yeah, that sounds like a nice little political statement, but it doesn't really mean anything. I mean,
that actually does mean quite a bit. The angle has stopped being that they were trying to turn the discussion on church-state separation as opposed to allowing stuff like that on public property being favoritism to religion. Not allowing it is hostility to religion.
They always blame hostility to religion.
This is relatively new.
Hostility to religion when you didn't have the Starbucks cups be Christian. I mean, that's what they always do. And I don't know. I mean, I don't honestly think that there's a monolithic Christian organization that's determining the media HR or media response. I just feel like they're always going to fight whatever words they can say, whatever they can do until they're forced to remove these Christian symbols. And they're always going to blame, what did they say? A few people were offended. That's always the way there. It's like, well, only a few people really care if I do this horrible thing or I do this thing that's technically unconstitutional. The government is not allowed to support a religion. Like, they're not allowed to infringe on your ability to practice your religious beliefs, but they can't just put up a symbol of your religion and leave it in a park.
But if
pay for it,
if they get their way, and the way they have been coalescing on how to frame the argument as hostility towards religion, it's increasing their chances because the Supreme Court is becoming more and more favorable to that.
Yeah, the Republicans have done a pretty good. They've put on a lot of federal appointments in Trump's administration. So
by not allowing Obama to fill very many.
Well, I mean, they're just more organized on the right than. That's what happens when you don't have any convictions, Democrats.
Yeah. So, one reason to be concerned is the Supreme Court, with its soon-to-be new member, Brett Kavanaugh, has been going through his hearings.
That's been an interesting trip.
Oh, that has been bizarre.
Right.
But one thing that has been learned from committee confidential documents that Senator Cory Booker, Democrat from New Jersey, broke rules to release.
I know, that was interesting.
Oh, that was amazing. The committee chair was threatening to bring up charges of conduct unbecoming a senator and getting him expelled from the Senate.
I know, that's so funny.
And he looked him square in the eye and said, "Bring it."
I don't think that has any legs.
It takes 2/3 of the Senate to do it.
Yeah.
You can never get 2/3 of the Senate to agree on anything.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. But so it has happened before, but not since the Civil War.
Oh, yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's only happened one time outside of senators who were actively involved in the Confederacy. And that was in 1798.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, so one of these documents shows exactly how hostile to church-state separation that Brett Kavanaugh is.
Oh, well, yeah, we're not surprised. I mean, this is one of the reasons why Republicans got behind Trump in the first place, is they knew he would be into this idea of putting this kind of guy on. I mean, a frustration that is frequently had with the Democrats is the Republicans are openly and brazenly, they just embrace this Machiavellian approach to politics, where modern Republicans have been really good about organizing themselves onto a lot of governorships and like jury rigging or elections so that everything goes in their favor. And they're just blatant about it. They'll shut down voting districts in predominantly black neighborhoods. They'll just get rid of all the voting. They'll just get rid of all the voting places. They'll remove early voting under pretense. They'll actively put up barriers to voting in places where people who don't vote for them live. And they do it brazenly. And then the left comes in, or the left in this country comes in. And then they we have to meet them halfway. And well, that's not how you win. You're like, you don't just win by only getting stabbed once. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just an interesting strategy. I think it really points towards the Democrats needing new leadership overall. They've been really resistant to progressive voices, and we're seeing more progressive voices being voted in. Ocasio-Cortez, I believe her name is a member of that. And we're seeing more women running for office than ever before. So we'll see. But until the left gets their act together, this is what's always going to happen. The left had Garland, and the right is all, well, we have to wait till we vote. But now it's only 2 years later, and the right is completely flipped their position. Well, we have to do it now before we vote.
Yeah,
we can't not. I mean, so you just can't trust anything that comes out of Mitch McConnell's mouth.
Right. Okay. So with Brett Kavanaugh, specifically, he is the person who created George W. Bush's faith-based initiative.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He built it, including the taxpayer money going to religious organizations and the explicit allowance to discriminate against anybody that they want, including LGBTQ people and anybody else that doesn't meet their Christian ideals.
Yeah, they frame that under freedom of religion, too. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't force us to hire gay people because we think gay people are gross. It's really their whole defense.
Yeah. Oh, that is the defense.
Yeah.
My simple response is, right, you have that right, but if you're going to be a dick, we shouldn't give you any money.
Well, yeah, that's where it got dicey, and this is it's crazy. Yeah, so they questioned him on it, and they were bringing up old records, and to be frank, the left at this point is just trying to throw up as much in the way of his confirmation as possible, to try to derail it so that they run out of time before the election. It's just political football.
Right. And for good reason. Brett Kavanaugh is horrible.
Yeah, that's not even the worst thing he's ever done. Like, that was pretty normal behavior for people during that administration. They were very, very religious Christians, the whole group of them. So, yeah, I mean, it's not surprising, and especially considering the amount of discrimination towards certain parts of our populace in that administration.
Brett Kavanaugh does not believe church-state separation is a thing.
He doesn't think it should be, no.
He thinks that net neutrality is unconstitutional. He thinks that Roe versus Wade is not settled law.
He has tried his best to dance around that one. Trying to decide. There's just, at this point, they're just going to try to throw the most conservative person on the court that they think they can reasonably get away with. And they're doing it with as much trickery as they can. Oh,
and they're specifically going for the youngest conservative and most conservative person they can get away with.
Oh, yeah. What was the thing? He wasn't even really on the list until... Because that's the other thing. He wasn't even on the list until after everything started going down with the investigation.
Right. Oh, and he also thinks that presidents can't be subpoenaed, indicted,
or charged with crimes at all,
or charged with anything.
Yeah,
shouldn't even be able to get sued.
It's a bizarre way to have a king, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, that is definitely weird take on the Constitution.
So, if you haven't written your senators yet, please do. It's not likely to make a difference, but it might. And if you live in Maine or Alaska, definitely write your senators. They are the ones that are most likely to flip on this. Mm-hmm. So please do. If you are in a blue state with a Republican senator, definitely write. At least suggest that they vote present. Because if one Republican votes against and one abstains, it fails.
It's such a slim margin that we're working with here.
Yes, it is so slim.
I fully expect him to be instated, though. There's just...
Oh, yeah.
The odds of him not being instated are pretty crazy. But we heard a lot of noise after the Republicans stole the election in 2000. Like, everyone gets mad about it, but nothing happens. You know, even if the worst case scenario with the Trump administration being installed by the Russians, worst case scenario, they would just throw a fit and then nothing would really change. All of his confirmations and all of his appointments and everything that he does would still have gone through. Mm-hmm. It won't change anything. because somebody a long time ago didn't envision this scenario happening. And I don't know. It's weird. It doesn't really seem good common sense.
Yeah, there should be a way to hit the undo button on a presidency.
Yeah, like an annulment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
not a divorce, but an annulment. Yeah, I like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a break. And then we have, I think it's all good news after that. Atheist Nomads is proudly brought to you by listeners just like you. You can find out how you can become a patron at patreon.com/atheistnomads. That's patreon.com/atheistnomads. Now, speaking of patronage, one fun thing I learned about that Patreon does is they look for, quote, suspicious activity.
Oh, really? Do they?
And then place your account on hold.
Do they do that?
Yep. So I still haven't gotten paid this month.
Oh, so what was the suspicious activity?
I don't know. They haven't answered my email. They didn't notify me.
They probably don't even know. It was probably a mistake.
They didn't notify me that they were going to be putting my money on hold.
Oh, weird.
They haven't responded to my email asking why it was put on hold and what I can do to help and when I'm going to get my money. And yeah.
That's interesting.
It is.
What do you think it was?
I don't know. I have no way of knowing.
That is interesting. Do you think they'll get around to it soon? Are you ever going to see your money again?
I hope. Fortunately, the podcast has just enough buffer money to. It won't affect anything, but
well, that's good. That's the important part.
Yeah,
it's still annoying.
It's still annoying. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that sucks.
Yeah, it does. And also, the extra money from the podcast basically buys diapers.
Oh, well, good to know. Become a patron and support the arts.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
The Los Angeles Police Department, Hollywood Community Police Station, had a very large kiosk in its lobby promoting the Church of Scientology.
Isn't that weird? They're spooky.
Massive Scientology kiosk in the police station. Well, American Atheists sent them a letter letting them know, and they being the Los Angeles Police Department,
right, the Labbit,
letting them know this is very illegal. This is a cause for concern, and it needs to be removed immediately.
Well, that's good.
The response of the Board of Police Commissioners was to immediately remove it.
Well, that's good. Maybe they didn't know about it.
That is entirely possible. That at least the higher-ups didn't.
Oh,
Maybe
I'm sure the next person up did not know about that.
Maybe it was maybe it was like a reverse robbery where they broke in and installed it overnight. And then in the morning, the morning crew showed up and was like, oh, well, that's just what we do now.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if the head of the precinct was Scientologist.
Yeah, and then just put it in.
And was like, yeah, sure, let's put that in.
So ballsy. Religious people are really ballsy when they have any power. Any power. So many religious people just take once they can. They really can't.
Yeah.
And that's not even like now. That's like through all of history. You just give them an inch, and most religions are like, well, I'll just set up a kiosk here in the police department.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally fair and legal.
Yeah, I was kind of thrown off when I went to the zoo a couple weeks ago, and there was a big Jehovah's Witness thing.
Weird.
Right outside the zoo talking about how God created life.
Oh, what?
And I'm just, so I went up to the kiosk and I'm like, to purchase a ticket. I'm like, what's with the Jehovah's Witness stuff? She's like, it's a public space, so they're allowed to put it up there. And I was like, oh man, that sucks.
That sucks.
Which also means that anybody else would be allowed to throw it away.
You could throw water balloons at it.
I was thinking something a lot worse, but water balloons, sure.
But like the pamphlets, you are free to take the pamphlets. That's what they're there for.
Set them on fire.
Doesn't mean you can't take all of them.
The sign itself, though, had a big old question mark over the top of the little cardboard setup. It was, God created life, and it was like, if you're trying to teach, and then it had something about evolution on there. So it's like if you're going to the zoo and you want to teach kids about stuff, and then that's sitting there, I don't know. I just thought it was
yeah, no, it's weird.
An approach.
Yeah,
it's totally weird.
That's
not okay.
And the zoo has no control over what's put on their own sidewalk.
Well, I mean, there's not their sidewalk.
It's not. It's the city's.
Yeah,
and I'm sure Parks and Rec would have been happy to remove it if they'd been notified.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
next time I was with somebody, otherwise I would have caused a scene.
Yeah, that's right.
But the Scientologists were at the Salt Lake Comic-Con. They had a L. Ron Hubbard booth.
Yeah, they're still trying to ride that train. Nobody reads that book anymore.
Any of their...
they had
all of them.
All of his science fiction writings.
Oh, they're really boring, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, just tables. Like,
they're so
3
boring.
tables just covered. He was, prolific is an understatement to that guy's writing
and they're
style.
not great.
And the guy that asked us if we were interested in science fiction was so creepy.
Well, ask Lauren.
Was
Me.
you guys interested in some science
He was just
Oh my
talking
god,
to
almost
Lauren.
exactly. He had a
Super
weird
creepy.
accent. He was all kind of hunched over, and he was kind of like not speaking very loudly. So it was obvious that he was speaking right to you. And it was like,
creepy.
So creepy.
And it was also right to Lauren specifically. If he tried talking to me, my response would have been, I am aspiring to be a subversive person.
Mm-hmm.
That is specific Scientology terminology that I've learned from listening to Oh No, Ross and Carrie, who have all been labeled as subversive people. And probably every Scientology facility has their pictures in the book of subversive persons.
Well, that's
to
nice.
not allow in the building.
Yeah, I know. We should have that.
It's like Walmart like a shoplifting thing. Walmart, like don't let these shoplifters in. Don't let these subversive people into the church, you guys. They'll talk logic and reason to people.
Yeah. But he didn't actually talk to me, so
the good ones can tell.
So the Church of England is facing a new crisis.
It's a funny one.
Yes, only 2% of young adults are identifying as members.
It's so little. Nobody.
2%.
It's like nobody.
Wow.
70% of English people under 24 say they have no religion.
Wow, that's a pretty good percentage.
70. In the US, that number's 30%.
Wow.
Maybe 40% for under 24, but 70.
I like it.
The information age just kind of it's the opposite of religion. Like, the more information that's free and out there, the less likely people are to accept these old ideas or new ideas, in case of Scientology, that,
Throwback.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. I mean, good. But the C&V is really like tied into the English government, though.
The Queen is the head of state and the head of the church.
And there's like bishops.
And about a third of the House of Lords are bishops.
But not many. Yeah, and they're seeing smaller numbers of people on all across the board, which kind of makes sense. People fall out of their faith a lot more now than they used to.
Yeah.
And less people are joining churches. And I don't even think it's anything the churches can do at this point, really, to like stop it. At some point, they'll probably hit this moment where they kind of like peter out for a while. But we have a big revolutionary change in the world, and I would definitely say the information age is as big of a change as at least cars. Oh yeah,
if
definitely.
not industrialization.
Yeah, it's a pretty big change.
Yeah, I would say it's more on par with industrialization, a complete makeover of how humanity acts.
Oh yeah, for real.
In every way imaginable. Like, okay, right now, 3 people talking to microphones, all looking at screens.
Yeah, sorry about that.
While people are on the other end listening to this in their headphones.
He's really annoyed
or
with me right now, I can tell. I'm playing on my phone. Sorry. As I continue to play on my phone. I just have to send off this email, otherwise I'll forget.
Everyone has different challenges.
Seriously, and mine is memory. Oh my god. I'm cognitively impaired after all.
Yeah.
According to my borderline personality associate. That was her fancy way of saying I have pregnancy brain. I was like, I
don't remember things either. It's fine. You don't have to remember everything.
Pregnancy brain has been thoroughly debunked scientifically. However, if you can't take your ADD medication because of pregnancy and breastfeeding, then that is going to have some.
I miss my Ritalin.
Oh,
I miss my meth.
That's going to have some effects.
Get your focus on.
Yeah.
But so getting back on focus.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
The surveys have found that there has been a halving of Church of England affiliation since 2002.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Wow.
So
16 years and they halved it.
Wow. In 2002, 41% of people in England said they had no religion. By 2017, that was 52%.
You know what my theory is on all this, always, every time, is that those people already weren't going to church. What's changed is how easy it is to tell people you're not a believer. Because it's very often, and this is really big in this country, there's not as many people in church as claim being Christian. There just isn't. Like, but what we do have is the social pressure for you to not admit that, like what I always call functional atheists. You're an atheist in everything but admitting that you're an atheist. Agnostics are technically atheists. Yeah. They're just atheists that aren't precluding the existence of a God. It's still the same thing. The only thing you're really saying is, well, God might exist, but I don't believe in it. Yeah. They're always looking at it from the other side because culturally. So as soon as all of your agnostics make that switch into being like, no, I'm not saying there's not a God, but I don't believe in any gods. And then all the people wandering around that obviously don't believe are like, well, clearly I don't believe in any of this stuff.
Well, and a big part of the switch that's happening is like, okay, you've got the people who actually attend church regularly.
Which is not many.
Which is not many. You know, even in the US, that's maybe 20% of the population, if even. Then you've got the people who are the Christmas and Easter Christians who occasionally show up.
Yeah, those people sometimes still pray, like when the cops are behind them, or like, you know, when they need help.
They teach their kids to pray, but they don't.
They make their kids go to church more than they go to church themselves, if even. And then there is below that the people who technically believe, but it makes no difference in their effect.
I think it's faith is a binary.
Oh, it is. They're the people that
they don't believe in the God as in the book because they don't follow any of the rituals.
They've stopped. They've stopped acting like they believe.
Fake spiritualism,
but they haven't dropped the belief yet because they haven't thought about it critically.
Or people it's just are thinking, it is like a switch where you either believe or you don't. Right. And some people logically can say this doesn't make sense, but there's a part of me that still believes.
Oh yeah.
Just like if you don't believe, it's impossible to say, okay, I can logically or I can convince myself to believe. No, you do or you don't.
Well, yeah.
But whether or not you express it that's up to you and social norms. And
yeah, I just feel like so much of it is just what you're comfortable saying as opposed to, because there just aren't that many people in church. There just aren't.
No.
And a lot of the people who argue for it or claim to believe, they pay lip service, but they're not. Yeah, because remember, that is one of the biggest things that they talk about in church is backsliding and not behaving like a member of the faith. Is because you don't actually really believe that much. Like, yeah, you go through the rituals, and if pressed, you'll ask, but nobody really, really believes they're in the hands of an angry God. Like, there are so few people, and if you take it to, like, the extreme, like the abortion conversation, the only people who I can really respect on the opposition for that are the ones who actually act like what they say is true. Everyone else walking around being like, well, yeah, abortion is a pile of dead babies. Well, you're really calm about it because that's how you see it. The guys who are out here willing to like blow themselves up, at least they think we're killing piles of babies. You don't. You don't really believe that. Or you're the worst person where you're like, oh, yeah, no, they can kill all those babies. I don't give a shit. At least I don't believe they're killing babies. So it's not really like an issue for me. But if you do, and it's like that across the board, like there's so much. And forget, like, because cultural Christianity in this country is not biblically accurate.
Well, no, everybody here is obsessed with a personal relationship with a loving God.
It's just spirit. Yeah, it's spiritualism.
I'm not seeing any of that in the Bible. I'm not seeing any of that. Like that is a purely cultural, modern cultural interpretation of what Christianity should be.
In the Old Testament.
Just an excuse to put up a "God bless this mess" sign on.
In the Old Testament, once there's a king, the relationship is between God and the king, not any of the people that serve the king.
That is interesting.
And then New Testament, it's between God and the church, not the member.
Hell, the Pentecostals do a lot of that stuff with the Spirit of God, like blowing through you and speaking inside of you, like,
which is weird.
Yeah, which is weird. I mean, that's not
kind of weird.
Of course, like, right from the outside, it's like, well, it's all bullshit. So whatever.
It's all kind of weird. Because technically, all that Jesus stuff is a blood sacrifice anyway. At the very heart of it, like if you just stumbled on this religion, you'd be like, okay, so they murdered that dude. Yeah, why? Oh, because that God likes it when you murder things in His name. That's like His deal. So so this whole the the sacrifice of the lamb, that's supposed to represent us murdering lambs. Yeah, I mean, and it's very hard, though. Wasn't like Jehovah like an old war god, like a long time ago from a violent people? Well, at the time, the tribe was very violent, and he just evolved as they did. And now, I mean, the God that we have now in the New Testament is this weird constructed hybrid between the Old Testament God and all the weird shit that they got in the Gospels and Acts, and then all that stuff that Paul just tagged on his Jesus fan fiction that he wrote
Mary
later.
Sue.
Yeah.
Right, so this actually ties in really well to some feedback. So let's take a break, and then we'll have the feedback. We love hearing from our listeners. You can email us at contact@atheistnomads.com, tweet us @atheistnomads, send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/atheistnomads, or better yet, call us and leave us a message at 541-203-0666. We might even play it on the show. You can also help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcast directory of choice. Okay, so from Jimmy Ninetoes, and I am sorry, Jimmy, that I forgot to bring this one up when you sent it a month ago. It slipped through the cracks, but we're covering it now. He wrote, I had no idea you were supposed to eat the sacrifice to Yahweh, as it states in Deuteronomy 15:20. Does that mean Abraham was going to eat Isaac? That makes that story even more fucked up. Yahweh is a dick. Wasn't there other children successfully sacrificed to Yahweh? Are humans unclean animals? Is Yahweh pro-cannibal?
Well, I mean, the correct answer is the story is not real. It's made up.
Yeah.
It's logically inconsistent.
But good questions. And I love that train of thought.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so if we accept the Bible as
God is the German fetishist.
The Word of God.
Sure, why not? Let's try that for a while.
So if we follow that mindset of it, it's an intact, it is the Word of God. Then yes, Abraham was going to eat some of Isaac's flesh and burn the rest. And Japheth, or whatever the guy in Judges was who sacrificed his daughter after victory in battle, ate some of her flesh and burned the rest.
Well, he said he did. I mean, no one double checks this stuff.
Now, if you look at it more, and yes, humans are unclean animals because we are mammals, and we do not have cloven hooves, and we do not chew our cud.
Okay, so officially you can't eat each other.
Right. But, so more likely what happened here is a bunch of pre-Jewish legends got Jewified and put into the text.
Oh, yeah?
Nice word.
Without cleaning
How many
up
points on Scrabble is Jewify?
And using it in a way that is not anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you mean. Like it was culturally absorbed into their identity.
These older stories, because child sacrifice was a major thing in that general culture, because it was the ultimate sacrifice to get the gods to come onto your side.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, you're already doing blood sacrifices.
As a mother who has a baby who's starting to get teeth, I totally get it.
Yeah. But then you'd have to start over. Well, I guess you'd have to start over anyway.
Yeah, you didn't really have a choice back then.
Yeah, you just kept having babies.
No, so it was battles between people weren't actually the two armies fighting. Yes, the armies were fighting,
champion fighting,
but it was the gods fighting that actually decided it. And so you needed your god fighting better against the other god. And if you were starting to lose the battle, then the king needs to sacrifice his son.
Clearly.
Yep. Because then you will win the battle. And there are stories in the Bible about kings winning battles because they sacrificed their children.
It's so weird. So weird.
So they didn't even
It's the ultimate sacrifice, right?
Yeah. They didn't even clean up all the stories. They tried to clean up some, but they didn't do as good of a job as modern Christians
we're really good at cherry picking now. We're really good at cherry picking now. Well, I mean, I just realized the other day that a lot of Solomon stories were written by Solomon, right? And they're obviously lies. Like the most popular one is Solomon offering to cut the baby in half to show how wise he is. And it's obviously written from Solomon's point of view. If you diagram that story, here's what actually happened. A woman desperately needs a baby for some reason. I'm assuming emotional. Bad enough to steal another woman's baby. And so this goes to court. right? And it gets all the way. No one can figure it out, right? It has to get to the king. This is not a king's job normally. You know, he doesn't deal with this level of crime.
Yeah.
So it obviously didn't get settled. So then Solomon, wise ass that he is, goes, I know, just chop that fucker in half. And the woman goes, okay. Now, first off, if you're that woman, that woman just doesn't exist. No woman goes from, I'm going to steal this baby because I need a baby, to, okay, chop it in half.
Right.
Like, that's not a real person. That never happened.
She was planning on eating the baby.
No.
And she was perfectly
you don't
with
bring that to the cops. If you're going to eat a baby and the cops show up, you're like, oh, fuck, I don't need this baby anymore. That woman wanted a baby.
And took it all the way to the king.
Yeah, like that you're going to get busted at some point, right?
Yeah.
Unless you double down. So
this would be the equivalent of a child custody dispute going to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, like it's just... Yeah, it's
not going to happen.
It's going to get decided. So that story only exists because Solomon's like, you know who looks smart today? I do. And he just wrote this story out, allegedly.
So this happened today, guys.
Yeah, so this happened today. And who's going to double check the king? They're like, yeah, sure, whatever, dude. I'm going to write that. That's totally what happened.
Yeah.
This lady.
Oh, I totally get the message there.
Yeah, like, and it's so ridiculous. Like, that woman doesn't exist. I mean, I would believe that over like a camel. Mm-hmm. Or maybe like that, where you're like, oh shit, yeah, sure, chop my camel in half. But no woman is gonna go from, I need that baby, it's mine, to like, oh yeah, sure, cut that baby right in half.
Yeah, but yeah, with the child sacrifice, they cleaned up some of the stories. They didn't clean up all of them.
Yeah, well,
and yeah,
it's very hard. It's
gross.
about sacrificing life to appease a god, which is just weird. Like the two things, I don't see how they go together. Like. Even the very, very first sacrifice, Cain and Abel, one of the sons gave his best lamb. The other dude brought his best crops. And look, I don't know. I've never been a shepherd, but growing crops isn't easy. Like, I mean, and if it is easy, then man, why are you even a farmer? Like, just go pick some, like, you're in the Garden of Eden, dude. Well, I mean, this is after they got kicked out.
And if you listen to the creationists, the atmosphere was like 65% oxygen at that time.
Oh, they're just scrambling for science. They don't have any.
Crops would be really difficult to grow with 65% oxygen.
They're just trying to rationalize their firmament theory where the water's in the air and they don't realize like how much water would have to fall to compensate for what they're doing. So they're like, no. Some water came from below. And it's like, you're just hedging yourself everywhere.
They even create a world where growing crops would be impossible.
Well, also, you know, they thought the world existed for a couple days before the sun was made. So
true.
That's weird and backwards.
We got one other piece of feedback from Dean via the website. Mm-hmm. Kapton tape is made of polyamide. It is translucent and orangey, not metallic. This is a correction from last week's ignorant discussion about the patching of the air leak on the space station. And I called it space duct tape. Okay,
whatever. But now, thanks, smart guy.
Thank you. And he actually, with the comment, had a .edu email. So
he sourced it?
He's a .edu.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so student or faculty.
That could be either way.
But also...
Sounds right.
Okay, translucent and orangey, cool. Not all duct tape is metallic. I've seen pink and rainbow and camouflage duct tape.
Oh, I've seen some of those.
So I'm still calling this space duct tape. Yep. And so now for some more good news. Gay sex has been decriminalized in India.
Decolonized, you mean?
No, so this is the 19th century colonial edict.
1860 British courts determined that all territories would, essentially view homosexual acts as illegal with, I think in India, punishable to life in prison.
Or even death.
Yeah, I mean, it varied.
It tends to get lighter. I think it is life is the maximum punishment.
And they don't really enforce it, but there were activists that that fought against this that had been jailed for 377 or whatever it is that it's called. But people don't realize how many people live in India. 1/5 of all gay people on the planet live in India.
Yeah.
Like, this is not like small news. That's a shit ton of gays.
Oh, with like, what is it, 1.3 billion people in India?
It's just there's just an unbelievable amount of homosexuality happening in India. And now it's decriminalized.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And to be fair, it needed to happen. I mean, all these old colonizing laws or things that are installed were a direct attempt to essentially gentrify countries into behaving ways that the British at the time thought were proper.
Yep.
Not only 2% of young British people now, but many of them no. So, and I did some research after this came out on what previous attitudes in India were, and it's difficult, when you look at the stories and what's on the walls and in the stone, because different things over different countries, it's over a very, very long period of time.
That's a very large, very diverse country.
Right. I mean, yeah, it was. So and homosexuality and homosexual acts didn't even really have a word until relatively modern age. And in some of the countries in that area, there were certain acts that were considered illegal, but or there was a staging, but there were also at the same time heterosexual acts that were considered as taboo. So it's not like the way we view things now.
Right. And
young, or for instance, a lot of times in a lot of places, like lesbian sex just isn't even addressed, because it can't, So yeah, I mean, it is good because it's just weird. Banning consensual sex between adults is odd anyway. It's just strange that you would try to control that. But
so what made this come to a head was since the year 2000, enforcement has actually been increasing as
there's been some
the Hindu Nationalist Party has decided that gay sex is bad.
Yeah, they're extremists though.
They are extremists.
Yeah,
because Hindus, like you brought up, typically it has not been a concern for them. And now that this new Hindu nationalist movement is becoming very conservative, they are adopting global conservative values, which means Christian conservative values.
Very similar.
Which even these Christian conservative values we have weren't conservative Christian values 30 years ago. This is this new weird thing that is we have. And so a court in a small regional court ruled it unconstitutional. That got overturned by the Indian Supreme Court. Then a few years later, and their ruling in that was, if it's only 2 or 3% of the population, then that's not significant. The moral values of the 97% is more important.
And now it's a privacy issue.
Yeah,
they went at the privacy precedent. And that's actually, I think it's a more evolved take than we do over here in the West.
Yeah.
Because that is the actual point of all points, is is it really your legal business what consenting adults do in the privacy of their own homes when they're not harming each other? There's nothing, there's no other criminal activity. So criminalizing something that's not inherently criminal is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the problem with a lot of the arguments that the opponents have, though, is that they're not centered in anything other than I was told in a book this isn't okay, or this makes us feel weird. And that's just not a very good argument. It's the one that they keep going with, where it's like, but they don't. It's not like they've tried all sorts of arguments, especially in our country, against the negative effects of homosexuality, and even having conversations with Christians now, it's not the majority of Christians you talk to. The vast majority of Christians in our own country stopped caring ages ago. Yeah.
Well, if you look around the U.S., most states still have laws on the books banning homosexual activity.
Yeah, the sodomy laws were stricken as unconstitutional, but they weren't written from the books.
Right, and that ruling was in 2005.
Yeah, but nobody. It's the same thing. Nobody's really enforcing it in our country either.
It hadn't been enforced since the 70s,
and a lot of DAs don't even think it's an enforceable offense, because plus you'd be embarrassed, most of people, I think, to take that one to court.
But what brought it up was there was an attempt to enforce it in Texas.
Yeah.
And so the defendant sued.
As you should.
Took it to the Supreme Court.
Because it's ridiculous.
The ruling in the U.S. was the same as India's. The right to privacy includes activities between consenting adults not being illegal.
It was something that's lost in this conversation. Like, there's always going to be a percentage of people that are living now that will never rescind their feelings on things like that this community or other communities or immigrants or any of the other things that they just already hate. Those people existed before the current election cycle. Mm-hmm. The issue is that extremists control most of the conversation because the vast majority of votes in this country don't vote. They're just so you don't really know. You're just going off what is relatively small sample size. But studies have shown that the greater majority of Americans don't care. So even if they did criminalize this stuff, and it does affect, the laws do affect culture and how people are, the vast majority of Americans at this point don't think it's a problem. Mm-hmm. The odds of your boss firing you for being gay are actually pretty small. Now, this administration that we have has already said that they think that that's totally legal. Because they still, since back in the days of when Kavanaugh and Bush Sr., that was Bush Sr., right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Bush Sr., they always thought that. They haven't changed their opinion.
Kavanaugh was with Bush Jr.
Okay, it was Bush Jr.
That was W.
So, yeah, but that hasn't changed. So even if they do make these laws and these things, the underlying people haven't changed their minds. And they're not going to change their minds back. Like, if you don't currently think that being lesbian is icky and gross, if they change the law, it's not going to make you think that it's icky and gross. Like, it's just not. It's just why the average American knows somebody in the LGBTQAI plus community, in the saga community, and in those people are not a problem. They work with you, they live with you, and a lot of us have been in relationships with people too, like be it a friendship or something else, and I feel that those bonds are a lot stronger than what'll happen. The issue, of course, will be untangling all of this once the pendulum swings back to a more rational place, because there will be all these people, young conservative judges all over the place, ruling in favor of these outdated old things. Mm-hmm. And I think personally that it's just another illustration of how our form of government doesn't function well.
And laws very rarely get updated after they're stricken down by courts.
Yeah.
For a good example, it was in the Oregon State Constitution that black people are not allowed to live in the state.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That was there until 2004 when it was finally removed. 2004.
It's an embarrassingly long time.
It hadn't been enforceable or enforced in a very, very long time.
Oh, I can imagine. But it's an embarrassment that it's still there.
Right.
Like, you think you would want to believe that some common sense member of the state government would have been like, hey, guess what I found out we still have? I'm moving that. We get rid of that. Like,
yeah,
it's just weird.
And that would have been a pretty easy...
that's pretty much a gimme, because who's going to fight against that law? Like, who's going to come out and be like, well, actually, I think... Oh, no, you don't. You do not.
It ended up taking an initiative.
So crazy.
It wasn't that the legislature referred it to the people. The people decided this needs to actually be removed.
Which is a nice part of the system when it works.
And just like in India, that law, while it's been stricken down, it's still on the books. And the laws in many states, like the sodomy law in Idaho that prohibits any kind of oral or anal sex,
and that is still on the books. Couples, you guys. You guys aren't allowed. I mean, that's been on the books forever.
But
yeah,
also not enforceable.
Oh yeah, and it's just not. Yeah,
Goop got sued by quite a few prosecutors in California over claims of, it was 10 counties prosecutors had sued. Wow. And this was over claims that were scientific in nature, but not backed by science. In particular, it had to do with 3 products they sold online.
2 of them were vaginal eggs.
And one was a mix of essential oils.
Eye roll.
Yeah. So one of the district attorneys had to say about it that people have been selling snake oil for a long time. This is just another type of snake oil.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, definitely. And so Gwyneth Paltrow's company, Goop, went ahead and settled this case for $145,000.
That sounds like a bunch of money.
It's not.
Yeah, but it's not.
Considering those jade eggs go for a couple hundred.
It's honestly, I mean, I know not every atheist is a skeptic, but I sure am. And it's just ridiculous to me that people, I mean, I understand the marketing that these companies do everything they can to make it look like they're saying these have these medical benefits, but they're jumping through loopholes by trying to frame it a certain way. But it's all with the intent to deceive you into thinking. Or like, and you'll see that on a lot. Recently, the federal court said that all homeopathic products basically have to start carrying the warning that says, warning, this doesn't work.
That was the FTC that ruled that.
The FTC, and those kind of things, we only have to put those in place because, unfortunately, the average person just doesn't, not the average, but a decent percentage of people, a shocking percentage of people buy into this kind of stuff.
So the actual teeth of this settlement isn't the $145,000. That's nothing. Goop has had to change the descriptions on these products on their website.
Well, that's good.
And they also have to refund any customers who request it.
Well, requested is difficult. That means they'll have to have heard of the lawsuit, and they'll actually have to jump through the hoops that they'll need to do the thing. And yeah, I mean, that's just a thing that we need to get over. But I don't know if we, as human beings, are ever going to truly be capable of recognizing a pyramid scheme for a pyramid scheme or false health claims. Generally speaking, if you can buy it online and you've never heard about it before, it doesn't work. Otherwise, it would be super famous. If they ever actually did make a pill that made your dick bigger, they'd talk about it on the news.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they'd be like, oh, crap, because enough people would interested. But they don't, because there's nothing that does that. There's nothing that fixes your body by putting it in your vagina.
Well, and you think we would have fixed the snake oil salesman laws back in the 1800s?
We got a real hard on for free market, though. That's part of our problem.
So what I would like to see is
capitalism,
the ability to sue a company out of existence.
Yeah, like let the free market have more teeth if we're not going to use more regulatory process.
Allow the courts to be part of the regulatory process where, or not even the courts necessarily, the FTC, if you're making claims that you can't back up.
Or even if you're trying to trick people, like that's pretty obvious that you're being tricksy. And I understand that marketing isn't always straightforward. And also, but they're trying to create a need for a thing because that's also capitalism. They're just trying to create a need for it. So they have to say, hey, this shiny rock is magical. And if you stick it up your cooch, it'll solve all your problems.
Yeah.
And if you have one of those problems that they're talking about, they just select randomly from the ether. And you might be desperate enough to send them $249 or whatever the price is. And you can pretend to feel better. And sometimes it works. Don't get me wrong. Recent studies have shown that the placebo effect is now as strong as many drugs being tested.
Well, actually, the placebo, by definition, is not effective.
No, the placebo effect has been tested to be as effective as a lot of new drugs being tested.
Only for subjective measurements.
Right. But
pain.
Yeah. But pain is one of the things that gets treated the most in this country. It still isn't real. I own a copper band for my arthritis on my wrist. I don't believe copper can have an effect in that small amounts because I understand fundamental science, but I like the fit of the glove, so I still wear the thing. But I would never try to talk someone out of thinking that their equal glove is helping them because it's a pain issue. And if they don't think it hurts, well, then why am I taking that away from them? I think that's morally reprehensible to hurt somebody intentionally like that.
I personally find it more reprehensible to be selling products that don't do anything.
Well, that by very definition, if some people think that it helps them, it's doing something.
If it doesn't actually do anything.
But it does. Just not
placebo real. Isn't good enough.
But it helps people.
So
you're going to remove the help that people find?
Yeah.
Because there's no pill that's going to help my arthritis.
The placebo effect has been grossly misunderstood by lay people to justify the selling of snake oil. And
there's a ton of people. I mean, I understand that all this is just anecdotal.
It is grossly unethical to be selling a product that doesn't have any active effect.
And I agree with that. But I mean, people that use things currently, like there's not a lot of solutions for a lot of things that are attainable. Like we live in this weird hellscape of a wealth disparity where people don't have access to fixing their health problems. All they have is snake oil.
But the snake oil is stealing the money from these people.
Well, it's either that or it's going to go to pharmaceutical companies who aren't even going to solve your problems anyway. I'm not saying that it's ethical, but that's the system we have. Like, what are we going to change? Are we just going to make it so that people actually get to have treatment? Because that doesn't seem to be on the horizon at all.
That would be much better.
But we're not doing that. So I can't really advocate for taking away the small measurements some people have, because quite frankly, caveat emptor, what are you really doing though? Like, if you're going to buy a rock for your vagina to fix your problems, maybe you deserve to lose $250. I don't mean to be like the cynical, because I'm not a capitalist, but it's difficult. Like here, like, yeah, put the company out of business. But like, I don't know. I struggle here because we as a community, as a culture, are not creating a way for people to find relief with science. So this creates the void that allows these things to happen in. So we really want to go back. The fault lies with our inability to help our own citizens, which creates space for these monsters to come in and sell them magic rocks, because there's no doctor. Or a doctor you can't afford. Even if you have medical insurance, you can't always afford the deductible, or you frequently can't afford the deductible plus a copay. So I don't know. It's a mess. I think that's a different issue, but that's the thing we need to fix, because these companies are never going to go away as long as that need exists.
I think they should be attacked as well.
Sure. But then that leaves them with nothing.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm okay with people having nothing rather than false hope.
Yeah, hope is the last monster from Pandora's box.
And
I don't believe in hope, though.
Even if it's false hope, I'd be willing to take it away.
I don't know. It's too bleak.
All right. So for our final story, we've got some science.
Oh, that's fun.
Some new research has been looking into the motivation for team sports. And what they've found is, looking at hunter-gatherer cultures, play fighting is often a team activity where one team of kids will fight with another team of kids. And this is practice and training to develop the skills to go on future lethal raids of other hunter-gatherer camps.
Yeah, it's like how other mammals do it, just more complicated because we're primates.
You look at puppies and how they play.
Yeah.
It's all fighting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're not trying to hurt each other, but that's how they develop the skills to hunt.
Right. And later burn energy when they've got the zoomies.
And so,
little cootie puppy pups.
But this is really fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
Because that same drive is the drive behind team sports, and also helps explain why people get into it so terrifyingly.
I just think, I've always thought that it's part of the same part of your personality that latches onto jingoism. There seems to be in the Venn diagram between unbelievable intense sports fan and true jingoist of America. There's a good 80-85% overlap there. And I think there's got to be some either personality or something like, yay. And they do really personalize it. They make it an us thing. Like, we've been to the Super Bowl 6 times. And it's like, you've done shit. Some dude got hired to do that with your team name on his body. But
and your team,
right?
A team you have decided that you identify with no actual connection to it at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, or maybe your dad watched sports with you, and that's the genesis of it, which always gets romanticized. Or you're from the city. Like, I'm from Boise, and I don't care about BSU. I just don't care. If I ever wear orange or blue in this city during football season, people comment on it. I have bright orange shoes, and I was wearing blue socks because the color wheel has those two opposed in the right way that I can make it look pretty that way. And my socks have flowers on them, and a dude, even though it's bright neon orange Chucks and bright blue socks that I got off Wish, the guy's like, BSU shoes. And it's like, no. But that's how strong he wants. He was trying to bond with me over it.
Oh, if I were to, if I
crazy
had
tribalism.
If I had to wear a college football anything, I would be instantly hated by a terrifying amount of people in Boise.
Why? Are you Ducks fan or something?
I would have to go with the Ducks.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
If I had to pick, football. I would have to go with the Ducks. I'm not a big fan of football.
Oregon?
I grew up in Southern Oregon.
Well, you see, I'm from Oregon. It's just tribalism at that point.
It is pure tribalism. I know it is irrational.
I would choose a BSU just to be manipulative about it. Like if I had to drive, like why not? Because I was a bartender at the Sky Center there for a while for games. I did that for 2 years. That's a horrible job. The bartenders do not make very much money up there, which is why I only did 2 years. But wow, yeah, it is interesting. But it makes sense. It does make sense. I mean, we other primates go to war. So that is existed in us longer than we've existed as us. So proto primates were probably like organizing things and doing stuff. So it makes sense that we pitted together that training in groups to play games against each other also trains the skills that you need for battle. Strength, speed, endurance, dexterity, planning, strategy, competition, a competitive edge. You know,
well, and that's also both helpful for hunting. If it's a lot easier, if you're stuck with sticks and pointy rocks, if that's your tools that you have available, a club and a spear against even a deer, it's a lot easier if you've got a team and a coordinated effort to trap the deer. Javelins are hella effective though against deer. Yes, if you can work everything out, but your success rate's going to be higher with a well-coordinated definitely. Effort.
If you're hunting caribou on the tundra, I'm certain the ability to like work together is going to be super helpful because we don't really have a ton of great skill sets except for how smart we are and the fact that we're a really mean persistence predator.
Yep, and we have also worked out the skills like this study shows that if you are unsuccessful in the hunt, you can steal the hunt from your neighbor.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and just as a practice session for the skills you'll need later in life, like tribal humans or people who lived back then. There was a very heavy percentage of people that had to engage in food gathering, be it hunting and gathering, based upon, of course, culture and time, place. And in some places, a heavy percentage of your people would be working together in parties that could both hunt people and animals.
Yeah, near 100%.
Yeah, so, yeah, a lot. Everyone had to work all day just to everyone to eat. And if you lived in a place where you needed food over the winter, you ended up relying a lot on hunting because you can actually treat meat, and it's very high caloric and high protein. And it makes sense. This is fascinating science, but all it really does is just reinforce what scary creatures we are at heart. Like, it's the social construct that was put in as a ritual, who knows how many thousands of years ago. We've been doing it ever since, and we still do it. People still fight. And go crazy over sports events.
Alrighty, well, I think we are
There's a lot of bonus material.
About an hour over, so yeah, lots of bonus material. If you are not a patron, you just missed out on lots of conversation. We talked about life, the universe, and everything. I think quite literally.
Yeah, at the end. That's all. Most of it was at the end.
Yep. And for our patrons, thank you very much for your support. It does mean a whole lot.
It really, 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 really does.
Yeah. And Lauren, thank you.
I came back.
You did.
You made it.
Oh, I also need everybody, especially patrons, to start bugging Dustin to let me have a soundboard so I can make sound effects. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
he's not into the fart noises.
Or
so to get the soundboard, we need
yes, air horn.
Drive him crazy.
I don't know how to do a vuvuzela yet, but I'll figure it out.
Okay, to get a soundboard, we first need a larger interface, which is $250.
Right.
I think I don't believe you, but okay.
No, I have to have a larger. I need more inputs to add a soundboard.
Okay.
I currently have all inputs full, so I need a larger interface. So there's $250. Need a tablet that can support it. There's another $200, and need a larger beer budget to not only make me inebriated enough while recording to not care, but also inebriated enough while editing to not care.
Boop, boop, boop.
Beer, beer, beer.
I am a robot. Zorp. It'll be great.
You'll hate every moment.
Remember,
oh my God.
Not all those who wander are lost. Thank you for listening. Oh yeah, Mikey, thank you.
Episode of Atheist Nomads.
Glad to be here.
You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at atheistnomads and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/atheistnomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice. And while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.